que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
La bestialidad imperialista. Bestialidad que no tiene una frontera determinada ni pertenece a un país determinado. Bestias fueron las hordas hitleristas, como bestias son los norteamericanos hoy, como bestias son los paracaidistas belgas, como bestias fueron los imperialistas franceses en Argelia. Porque es la naturaleza del imperialismo la que bestializa a los hombres, la que la convierte en fieras sedientas de sangre que están dispuestas a degollar, a asesinar, a destruir hasta la última imagen de un revolucionario, de un partidario de un régimen que haya caído bajo su bota o que luche por su libertad. Y la estatua que recuerda a Lumumba, hoy destruida pero mañana reconstruida, nos recuerda también en la historia trágica de ese mártir de la revolución del mundo, que no se puede confiar en el imperialismo, pero ni tantito, nada.
ای ز شرار ستم شعله به عالم زده، امن و امان جهان یک سر بر هم زده، بر سر هر خرمنی در دل هر گلشنی آتش بیداد تو صاعقه غم زده، ثروت انبوه تو خون دل توده هاست، کین تو بر سینه ها دشنه ماتم زده، جز جهان خاره ای دیو ستم باره ای عقرب جراره ای روبه مکاره ای. در همه گیتی به پاس ناعره جنگ تو گوش جهان خسته از طبل بداهنگ تو مظهر شیطان تویی دشمن انسان تویی ای همه اهریمنی سرخط فرهنگ تو رسم تو اسیانگری کار تو ویرانگری تیره شده عالم از حیله و نیرنگ تو دشمن هر ملتی موجب هر ذلتی سایه هر وحشتی فتنه هر امتی
Iran calling out the great Satan, the great Shaitan, the United Snakes of America. Solidarity with Iran, solidarity with the Islamic Revolution, the peoples of Iran, the working class people, a solidarity with all peoples against empire, especially during the color revolutions, especially during these NGO-backed, George Soros-backed operations that are lying to us. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 93, Unmasking Imperialism, Exposing Imperialist Propaganda in Mainstream Media. Today, Iran's so-called feminist protests serve empire. These protests that are going on in Iran, serving the interests of Wall Street, of the London Stock Exchange, covered and cloaked with a veneer of progressivism and feminism. We're going to expose the mainstream media lies surrounding these protests. We're going to discuss how and why they serve imperialism, the history of Iran's Islamic Revolution, and how it has empowered working class Iranian women. We're also going to talk about color revolutions and how the imperialists carry out regime change operations with progressive branding. And we expose the hegemonic plot against Iran and the axis of resistance in the Ummah in the Middle East and the anti-imperialist nations. We've seen this before, guys. Please, I'm begging you, don't fall for this spell. I've already gotten into so many debates and arguments with liberals who keep falling for it over and over. First, you guys remember Pray for Ukraine and all this nonsense. Now it's, Pray for Iran, right? Hashtag SOS Iran, freedom for Iran. So it's insane. We have to do this. We have to cover this. Even so many sectors of the so-called left who are falling for it. It's insane. So many so-called Marxists revealing themselves as liberals. Shout out to everybody who's watching and listening to Comrade Erica. They fall for it every time. Yup, every time. And that's why we got to discuss this because, as I like to mention, these events are tests. These are tests by the empire to see where the left is, and we keep failing these tests. You have all of these liberals spouting propaganda against Russia, against Iran. Shout out to Livre, shout out to Comrade Erica, to Cobra Commander. And joining us today is our guest, Marzieh Hashemi, a U.S. journalist who's currently living and working in Iran. She was born in New Orleans and studied journalism at Louisiana State University. I actually have to hit her up. So we had some connectivity issues with everything going on. Right now, the tech censorship against Iran is crazy. I tried Skype, I tried StreamYard, and everything wasn't working. So we are going to get Sister Marzieh Hashemi on the old school way. I'm actually going to hit her up right now. And I'll read her bio again for everybody to listen. She is based in Iran. She's a really amazing person. So let me just quickly read her bio again. Marzieh Hashemi is a U.S. journalist who's currently living and working in Iran. She was born in New Orleans, studied journalism, Louisiana State University. She has been in broadcast journalism for over 30 years. Currently, she hosts a weekly television program called Hidden Files and works as a producer. She was a senior anchor for Press TV for 12 years. Shout out to Press TV. She has made several documentaries, mostly concentrating on the situation of Black people in the U.S. Please follow her on Twitter. Link is in the description. She's an amazing, amazing a woman journalist. Before I actually call her, I just want to play a clip just to give you all some details who exactly she is. Not only being a people's journalist, she was also illegally detained. The U.S. likes to talk about women's rights in Iran and detentions of women. Well, Marzieh was actually detained by the U.S. government on January 13th, 2019, traveling to the U.S. to visit her family. Illegally detained at the St. Louis Lambert International Airport in Missouri, against her will, held for 10 days. And she was only given a call, allowed a call 2 days after she was in prison for no reason, guys, for no reason, detained illegally. She was denied halal food and only offered pork to eat, which we know is forbidden, is haram under Islamic law, and also forced to remove her hijab. So if we want to talk about women's rights, here you have a Black Muslim woman who was detained by the U.S. government illegally several years ago. She lives in Iran, and she can provide for us a on the ground perspective of what's actually happening. I'm going to hit her up right now. Let's see if she picks up. Let me know if you guys can hear this, by the way.
Hello?
Hi, Marzieh. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Good. Can you guys hear me on the chat? Those of you who are watching, listening, just give me a thumbs up or say okay in the chat. If you can hear her, we want to make sure her audio is good. Thank you so much, Marzieh, for joining me. And I think it's important to have this discussion because 99% of the media coverage out there is just completely, oh, great. Shaniqua says thumbs up. So sounds good on both ends. Perfect. Awesome. Great. So again, I introduced Marzieh before I gave her a call. People's journalist, an amazing woman with a tremendous career, somebody who has a lot of talent and could have easily gone into mainstream media in the U.S., but has chosen to support a people's revolution in Iran and also supporting people's movements in the U.S., covering important movements, the Black Lives Matter movement and others, calling out police brutality as well. So I have a lot of respect for the sister, and she provides on-the-ground coverage of what's happening in Iran. She's based there, and she has a tremendous experience with Press TV and other media outlets covering what's going on in Iran. So before getting into the situation, Marzieh, if you want to just give us some background on you. I briefly mentioned the double standard. I mentioned your illegal detention in January 2019. I actually went to a protest here in LA where I'm speaking to you from in solidarity, with your detention. Do you want to give us just some background about that and just and how you got involved?
Well, thanks for going to that demonstration, and hello to everyone who's listening. And sorry I couldn't join you by video. I'm having some issues with the internet this morning here. It was really just crazy. Whenever I traveled to the States, I would be detained, at least for a bit, questioning about what I do here, what I'm doing back there. And I would always say, well, I'm an American citizen. I think I have the right to come home. But the last time I was there, 2019, it was different. I was going to the States to see my brother and other family members. And I also shot film in St. Louis, a documentary dealing with, interestingly enough, there have been many of the activists who participated in the, after Mike Brown was killed, many of those activists have also been killed, and no one's talking about it. So basically, I went there for that and was talking to especially the mother of one young man who they said hung himself, and just this whole scenario. So it was a very heavy environment already in St. Louis. And I went to the airport to get back to Denver, where my kids were based at that time. And, they invited me to board early boarding, which I knew something was up. And so I went down the corridor. FBI agents were waiting for me, whisked me away. It was like a movie, whisked me away down the steps in the back with the black SUVs waiting on the tarmac, and basically took me and flew me to D.C. where I was incarcerated, and I didn't even know what was going on. It was just so odd and so surreal. I mean, still it's surreal, to be honest, 3 years later when I'm thinking about it. And, finally, when I was asked what I was doing there, it was this whole material witness nonsense that they were saying. And I was like, well, my lawyer, if she's a witness, then, could you have subpoenaed me or whatever? I have no reason not to come to court to testify. Anyway, they said, no, it was possible that I would escape. And I'm escaped to, I'm American. I'm not really understanding this. Anyway, when I was in front of the grand jury several times. And basically, what they were talking about was my job here at Press TV and working at Press TV and in general, different either stories we have covered or not covered, and even relationship that Iran has with different entities. And I'm like, well, I'm not a representative of the Iranian government. I'm not an official. But interestingly enough, number one question is dealing with Israel. It's mind-boggling because you're like, okay, so if American interests, I would think American interests would be prioritized in America, but no, the questions we're dealing with Israelis and Israeli interests.
Wow.
Why don't we cover, how bizarre is this question? Why don't we cover at Press TV Israel in a positive light? And I'm like, well, why would Iran cover Israel in a positive light? First of all, I'm not sure positive light that it could really be covered in general, unless people are lying through their, teeth and not looking at the reality on the ground for the Palestinians. So it was that. It was also dealing with the Iranian terrorist group, MKO. And why aren't they given a platform? Why aren't they allowed this opposition group, as they call them, a platform on Press TV? And I'm like, they're a terrorist group. They killed 16,000 Iranians.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right. It's obvious. Yeah.
So it was these type of issues that they were talking about. And after 10 days, and let me say, at the end, they gave me an offer, and they said, okay, look, we're really worried about you. You go back to Iran. We really feel that you're going to be killed or put in jail. So to be honest, the first year back here, I was prepared to die, but not from this side. But I thought they might target me or whatever when they're giving this kind of threat. And they basically said, okay, so you stay here. You're one of us. Basically work for them. Right? Basically be just a mouthpiece as we see what's going on right now, and spewing off nonsense about Iran, be based over there. And then interestingly enough, then when I got back here and they released this whole thing and they created this image and tried to make me seem like I'm some kind of spy and was over there recruiting people, I'm like, give me a break, come on. The individual that they had mentioned, I had worked with in a documentary years before. I had been in touch with her. Her name was on the credits of my one of my earlier documentaries, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I actually met this woman in Iran. She's American, and I worked with her over there. But as far as anything else, I have no idea. And if I was some kind of super spy, would I be in contact with this person? Would I use my own email? If there was, it was just really bizarre, really crazy. But that's what they do. That's what they do. And, after I got back here, like I said, it was this whole thing of trying to paint this picture of, negative picture of who I am and what I was doing. And it's normal, Ramiro. That's the entity that we deal with, unfortunately, when we're dealing with this, the center of imperialism. And that's what we're seeing right now as we transition into what we're talking about today, exactly what's going on in Iran today. Ramiro, I have seen, it is unbelievable. Like, if I had never come to Iran and never lived in Iran, I would imagine that this would be a country, and I'd love to hear from your viewers and stuff, what their first image comes to their mind when they hear Iran, because they have created this negative image over the 4 decades of being a backwards place, that people are repressed, just cut off from modernity, cut off from the world. And it's interesting because when people have come here, either just visiting or been invited to various conferences, they're shocked. They're absolutely stunned. I mean, I had one person once prior to getting here was saying, like, do you guys have electricity? You live in, like, what kind of houses do you live in? I'm like, do you know how old this civilization is over here? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So on the one hand, they paint a picture of, this country that's going after, nuclear bombs. And okay, so they have the sophistication to deal with nukes, you're saying. On the other hand, we have people who have an image of, oh my God, I mean, these people are living in the desert, right? They have nothing. So this is how they create. And we know, I mean, if we look at the images from so many countries that they try to create, first of all, they work on that part of it. And then they can say whatever they want about it, because unfortunately the average person will accept it because they've been demonized for so long.
Beautifully said. And just as one of my good friends, Erica Kane, says in the chat, yes, decades of propaganda to validate the decades of sanctions. And I totally agree with you, Marzieh. There's so much propaganda and nonsense about Iran. Everything that the U.S. and Israel accuses Iran of is actually true about the U.S.-backed, Western-backed entities like Saudi Arabia, and even the U.S. itself in terms of detention, having the largest prison population in the world, Israel spying and censoring people. So it's just it's crazy to see that. It's infuriating. And honestly, it's been so frustrating these past few days, just getting into so many debates with people, even people who consider themselves anti-imperialist or left or progressive, yes, who are saying, yes, oh, well, we have to, this is a grassroots uprising. Okay, so what? The US and the Western powers are supporting it. This is, neither Tehran nor Washington. And, as somebody who has been victim to kidnapped by the US government, by the US state, who has been detained illegally by the US government, what is your perspective about what's going on? First of all, give us a rundown of what exactly happened. The case of Mahsa Amini, what exactly happened, and how has the Western imperialist powers been taking advantage of the situation?
Right. It's been an amazing situation. I mean, because I've seen, of course, I've been in Iran a while now, and I've seen many attempts actually to try to overthrow this government or try to get the people to turn against the government. And I have to say, this is I think the most coordinated one that I have seen on so many levels, exactly the point that you just made. We've had traditional people who are traditionally anti-imperialist fall for this time around. What happened with Mahsa Amini? She was detained. Yes, we do have laws in Iran that women and men should dress conservatively. Mm-hmm. The women should wear a scarf. What we've been seeing over, especially since with Rouhani government, the last 4 years, basically what we had seen was that, I think, some women wear it, some women don't. So that's where we were and are. You see some women, they may have it on their shoulder or not wear it at all. And then you'll see others who are fully covered. And that's how we have been living with each other and whatever. I saw different signs within the last year that we were probably going to be targeted and the women would be used for this. And I mean, this is always something that we see in different places that the imperialists use. So when Mahsa Amini, we heard that she had been arrested, and the first things that came out, like in social media, was that this woman had been arrested. She had been beaten to death. Okay, then we find out that she had not died. She was in a coma. And then it was, that she had been just totally abused and so many different things. And then the CCTV cameras, the footage was released. And we see this woman in this class. And so what they do, they take them in class and like, okay, so these are the reasons why, this is the law. You should dress conservatively. this type of thing. So she's in this classroom setting, and she's sitting down, and then she gets up and she talks to, I guess, one of the teacher's guards, whatever you want to call her, and she's talking. And I don't know if you guys have seen the video. I don't even know if they show the video over there. Okay, and then she passes out. Well, what we have found out, I mean, maybe from the stress of being detained, it could have an effect. I'm not saying it could not have, but we do know that she had the previous medical problems. And this whole thing is being investigated, let me say. I mean, right after this happened, even the president of the country said it has to be thoroughly investigated. And if we see that there's a problem, if someone caused this, whatever, then they will be prosecuted accordingly. So this is, okay, let me just say that situations happen in many countries as far as dealing with police or whatever. But the thing is that when it happens, anything happens in Iran, all of a sudden it becomes systemic. Everyone. Yep. I mean, the U.S., you can shoot, a black guy 80 times and who has done nothing or whatever, but okay, but you don't question the overall system. It's that let's just get justice in this particular case. All of a sudden, this just turned into such a major story, and we saw from like all over the world, everyone just getting involved and making statements, and then the hashtag. I mean, the hashtag. Can I say the hashtag? Amini. It was unbelievable that the number of hashtags. I did a show on this a few days ago. It was like nothing you've ever seen. I mean, it was like 90 million, almost impossible. I mean, in 1 week from somebody who's unknown. Yeah. So we see the whole tech involvement in all of this. That's number one. Number two, Iran during that week was involved in a few different things. One was the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. So Iran joined Russia and China, India and Pakistan and a few other countries for that Shanghai cooperation that Raisi was in Uzbekistan signing at the time. This is really major because it's a total shift to the east, and it shows that Iran is anything but isolated, because when you're talking about, let's say, even from the economic perspective of dealing with a market like India, Russia, China, Pakistan, and others, it's a big move, and the U.S. knows it's a very big move. Also, we've had at the same time, because you also have to look at what's going on elsewhere. Then all of a sudden we see the so-called skirmish, Azerbaijan and Armenia taken up. Azerbaijan is on the border of Iran, for those who may not know. That's a security issue. That's a major security issue for Iran. We saw so many things going around its various borders at the same time. All of this taking place, and I have to say, during that week, that was the week of, we had a couple of holidays during that, so things were not at the regular level of work level. We had the biggest in Iraq on that Saturday, around the same time all this was happening. It's the biggest gathering in the world, the biggest annual gathering in the world. It's Arba'in. It's a religious gathering. The significance of this is the solidarity, especially between Iran and Iraq. Strategically, it's very important. This was not covered at all in the media. Now I'll ask you, the largest annual gathering in the world, doesn't that deserve some type of media coverage? And they rarely cover it. This is an annual event, right? Because they know the significance of it. So all of these things were happening at the same time. And then all of a sudden we see this story just take off, just take off. Now, let me tell you, I'm a woman, a Black American woman from New Orleans, and choosing to live in Iran. And I can tell you that there is no way that I could deal with a society that was repressive or oppressive towards women. Okay, yes, we have a rule that you should wear something over your head. Now, people may get into this whole thing, oh my God, and freedom or whatever. Well, you know what? This is what they chose 44 years ago. And if you want to change it, then there are ways to change it, and it's a domestic issue. This is really not the point of it all, because we know that the United States and others, they don't give a damn about an Iranian woman dying.
Yeah.
Okay?
Of course.
Because we have had and we have major sanctions against us. I mean, I did an interview about 2 months ago, and I talked to these individuals who have these rare diseases and everything. It's a EB, it's called the butterfly disease. And these people have this very, very sensitive skin, and they have to get this special bandage or wrapping, or otherwise their skin peels. They have to do this 2 or 3 times a day. There's one company, a Swedish company, that actually sells these bandages or wrappings. The United States won't let that Swedish company sell to Iran. We have people dying every day. That's just one of these diseases. So don't tell me that all of a sudden they care so much about one woman dying. Okay, so this is what people don't understand. And our so-called anti-imperialists, it's really sad that they haven't gotten this yet, because it's not about that. It's not about that. And by the way, because we know, they did the same thing with Afghanistan and the whole women things or whatever. Well, right. We just had a lot of women who were killed in Afghanistan, again, on Friday. Where's the hashtag for them now? No, because that doesn't fit into their overall scenario. So we have to put everything, we have to understand how to put things in perspective and look at things strategically. Why would we think, and I'm talking to the so-called anti-imperialists, why would you think all of these entities have gotten on board? Really? I mean, we have American women dying constantly over there. Do we have these hashtags taking off like that, and just this whole movement? I mean, I don't think anything has been really decided about Breonna Taylor and so many others. So what is it about this 21, 22-year-old young woman, who, of course, the loss of any life is sad. Right. But we have to put it all in perspective. Now, all of a sudden, this has become a massive movement, as they're saying, against, Iran and how it is anti-women. Where is Iran and women? The majority are over 55%. I don't have the exact statistics right now, of our university students are women. I mean, what are you talking about as far as this oppression? And Iranian women know, they know their lifestyles, they know what they have. But it's always easy to manipulate a group of people because, yes, there are hardships here. Economically, there's a lot of pressure, and that's what the U.S. does. I mean, they inflict this pressure on people first. And then, it's easier to get people on the streets because, yes, of course, there's frustration. I mean, when we look at our buying power, we look at the real and how it has been devaluated. Yes, it is difficult. So when you have people going through those hardships and then there's something that happens, it's easy to pull them out on the streets, especially the way this has been done. It has been an unbelievable media attack, and all of their cronies, the Iranian cronies that they've bought off and paying for, have gone full throttle on this one. So the thing is that what we have to understand is that the picture that they're painting is not the reality on the ground. First of all, the whole country is not on fire. It is not like that. I'm not sure if Press TV had gone out, because we've had in the middle, because the first day of school is the first day of fall here. And, just the kids going to school, and that happened last week. University students returned yesterday. There were some sit-ins at some of the universities, but that's a big difference than the whole country just falling apart. They have always tried to show, basically, that this revolution wouldn't last. I remember I was a college student when this revolution took place, and I remember, the initial stages was they were talking about the leader of the revolution was Ayatollah Khomeini, and back then, and they were like, oh, he's dying. It won't last. And he lived another 10 years. That's how we started off. And since that time, there have been so many things that they're saying is collapsing. The people don't support it. We saw it in the whole 2009 shenanigans with that election. And we see it now. Listen, I was on the streets and I've seen both sides. And we've seen also the pro-government protests that have taken place in various cities. I mean, of course, always they would say the whole thing. Actually, I was in the middle of one of those and listening to people, and they were like, "Oh, but what happened to our Jews?" And the reason why I said that is because there's a joke, because the Western propaganda machines used to report on the anniversary of the revolution, when millions of Iranians go out again and, support the revolution. They would always say, "Oh, because they're giving them free juice." Free juice, that's why they're going out. God. And then people were saying, "Well, where's my juice? I didn't even get my juice today." What's going on?
That's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah. It's really quite interesting. And I mean, these are just class studies for people who are interested in media and media manipulation. It is quite amazing. And I just want to say one thing. When we're talking about this whole, because they're trying to, talk about these women's rights and freedom and this and that, let me tell you, if we look at what has happened in this region, when we look at the ultimate anti-terrorist, who was General Qasem Soleimani, who the United States targeted in 2020, January 3rd, 2020. He and those who he led were the ones who freed the women of this region from those terrorists. They were kidnapping, they were raping these women. They were using them as sex slaves. They were killing their men, destroying their families. And this happened, of course, as we know, in Syria, in Iraq. And the goal was Iran. And the goal was to get it done here. There was nobody that would be waving their, whatever, scarves or whatever else, talking about freedom if they were living under those terrorists. That is freedom. And you have security. Women can go, and they know it. Women can go out in the streets here at night on a regular basis by themselves, walking in the street. My son, he's 28 years old. I remember a couple of years ago, he was like, "God, Mom, these women really feel really secure, And I'm like, "Why do you say that?" He says, "Well, I was walking on the street." He said, "It's really like quiet street. It's 10:30 at night or 11 or something like that." And he says, so this woman was, coming towards me. She had her headphones in her ear, whatever. And he said, and I'm thinking, okay, so she's going to cross over now because this is like a dark alley. And, it's kind of natural with a big guy passing, like, okay, to be a little, perhaps, cautious. And she said, nothing should be looked. And she was just, into her own world or whatever. And I said, that's because they feel secure. In general, they feel secure. And they are, or at least they have been. Unless that's destroyed. I mean, that has been the goal, to destroy that forever, as far as from the imperialists. This is not a place of women being oppressed. Iranian women are anything but oppressed. Let me just say that. Of course, there's oppression, I'm sure, of some Iranian women, as there is with any other group of women. But in general, their personality types are not that. Actually, Iranian women are quite independent. And as I said before, quite educated. And you see Iranian women in all realms of the society. Yes, Iran has different laws than other places. It's an Islamic republic. But that does not equate it with being oppressive, and it does not equate it with this, oh my God, we have to save the poor Iranian. I've seen some of these videos, and God. I'm just like amazed and just laughing almost. We have these Iranians, oh my God, please save us. You got to help us. You don't know what our day-to-day is. And I'm like, yeah, you don't know what the average day-to-day is for an American woman who's busting her butt out there trying to make a living and, whatever. Yes, a lot of these women choose not to work, and they don't have to because, yes, it's still a partially traditional society. They get to choose, oh, do I want to work? Do I not want to work? Oh, I don't want to work right now. I mean, that's changing a lot because of the economic pressure. But in general, listen, you can't even begin to compare the lives of an Iranian woman, even to an American woman. They have a very strong support system here. Recently, I was talking to a friend who had just had a baby, and it's a tradition here. It's just really something small, but it's big in so many ways, because I think for the average American woman, they can relate. I mean, so many of us, we have our kids and we come home and we just continue doing what we always do. Here, it's a whole support system. The mother-in-law goes there, helps her, takes care of the baby, helps her take care of herself, this and that. This is a month to 6 weeks. That I'm just talking about the overall support system here, and want people to understand, like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They would not be on the top 10 or 50 nation of women who are oppressed. Trust me on that.
Yeah, beautifully said. I think that's such a great point. It's also important to mention that in Iran, there are so many women who are scientists, engineers, doctors, who are advancing technology. I've never personally been to Iran. I'd love to go someday, but everyone hopefully I would love to. And everybody who goes there says that it's very advanced. It's cleaner than New York or LA. I live in LA right now. And if you see what goes on here in LA, it's insane. And the other thing that's important to mention, alongside with the double standards, it's also important to mention the timing. On September 20th, the U.S. military killed a 15-year-old Iraqi girl, Zainab Essam Majed. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. While they were conducting military drills near Baghdad. And this took place near Abu Ghraib prison, which we know is where the members of the army and the CIA tortured innocent people, innocent Iraqis after the 2004 occupation. No coverage. I literally, right before calling you, Marzieh, like I Googled it. There was like almost no coverage at all about this. And it's just insane, you know? It's so infuriating to see that.
Lives in this region don't matter in general to them. To be honest, lives inside of the United States don't matter to the machine itself. It's their goal. And this is what our brother and sister fellow anti-imperialists, they should have understood up until now. And I hope that they will really look at this, because that's really important in general in what we do. If we're fighting against imperialism, we have to look at everything that they use as tools to advance their fight. And even if it means ignoring whatever, not covering whatever, they will do it. If it means deplatforming you, they will do it. We've seen it. We know it. So, the thing is that, I have been here long enough. I have seen several Iranian scientists assassinated, some of them in broad daylight, right, by the Israelis and the American agent, whatever. How did we see any hashtags? These men, they didn't have wives. They don't have children. These lives are not important. When you have this type of terrorism on this level, and we're talking about scientists, Iran has said time and time and time again that it's not after a bomb. And they know that. And even if they were, these same entities, they have it themselves. But, Iran has said it's not after a bomb. These are scientists, but are targeted. And I mean, where is the outrage? Where is the outrage from this? This is just unbelievable. They do not want Iran to advance in general. Okay, in general, this is the case. We have seen across the board in various fields. We've seen professors being held, being put in jail there for years because they wouldn't work with the Americans. There's one in particular who I talked to, interviewed personally. He was going over there to work for like a year on some particular project. And when he was in the air, before he landed in Chicago, they canceled his visa. So when he got there, they said, okay, illegal entry.
Oh my God.
and they took him to jail. He was in jail for a couple of years.
Yeah.
A couple of years. This is Mahsa Soleimani. And the whole thing is that they wanted him, okay, so we'll give you citizenship, we'll do this, you stay here, and you work for us. He's a top scientist. And he says, look, I work for all mankind. I'm here on a sabbatical. I'm going to be here for a year, and then I'm going back home. That's all I want to do. Whatever my, technological advances for human beings, for all mankind. But I'm going to be based in Iran. And I mean, they sent him back finally, and he was shackled to his chair on the plane until he got to Switzerland, when the foreign minister met him there. I mean, come on. Let us just wake up to the reality. But, Ramir, I just want to say, because I believe that the resistance against imperialism is growing, it's strengthening. The resistance front is getting stronger because people see it more and more. People realize these neoliberal agendas. They do not care about anyone, not Americans, not anyone. I mean, we see what just happened to Germany, with the whole pipeline. That's their so-called allies. And you know that it was the United States who bombed those pipelines, right? Yep. Of course, they're trying to blame it on Russia, like, oh, okay, Russia's going to bomb its own.
Right, yeah.
So they don't care if the German people freeze, and that's so-called allies. So come on. They do not care about humanity. This neoliberal agenda working for that 1%, and they do not care about humanity at all. I invite all people who really care about humanity to look at what's going on and unite against this really inhumane entity. And I'm talking about the hegemon and its friends.
Most definitely. And in addition to that, it's also important to hold on, take off my alarm. In addition to that, it's important to also mention that these tactics, the color revolution strategy of using a left progressive aesthetic, has been very successful for Western imperialism. If we look at people like Gene Sharp and people like Saul Alinsky, who write Rules for Radicals, and we look at George Soros, and we look at Zbigniew Brzezinski, who pioneered this strategy of funding so-called leftist groups to oppose anti-imperialist governments. I believe even the MEK at one point branded themselves as leftist, and we know they're basically stooges of Wall Street and Washington. Unfortunately, so many people, this is the battle, Marzieh, that I have here in the US. Like, I live in Los Angeles, and there's so many Iranians here who are right-wing Shah supporters. And a lot of the left, honestly, a lot of it is also like cowardice and just fear, because defending Iran is not trendy within the liberal circles, even some of the so-called left circles. So when you defend Iran, people look at you like you're crazy. A lot of people are scared, and a lot of people just repeat.
It's like defending the Palestinians.
Right. Yeah, no, it's
the Zionist entity is like the same thing, that you can't. A lot of people can't. They don't have that courage to be able to do that, or they don't want any trouble in their lives, basically.
Exactly. And that's a great point you brought up as well. Palestine, I think also people have to remember that one of the long-standing allies of Palestine, unrelenting since 1979, has been the Islamic Republic of Iran, has been the axis of resistance in Lebanon, Ansar Allah in Yemen. And I think that what we see is a fear of a unity. We live in exciting times at the same time, because, in Iraq, you have huge support for Iran and anti-imperialism, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Nigeria, all over the world, and Latin America and the Caribbean. Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua have all been working and collaborating with Iran, and have begin building projects of solidarity with Iran. And it's all based on win-win cooperation. And I think that's a big fear for the empire.
Very much so. That's very much the case. And, speaking of Palestine, the very first Palestinian embassy to be opened in the world was opened right after the Iranian Revolution in 1979. I mean,
wow.
Imagine a new country, a revolutionary country, have so many issues or whatever. One of the first things they did was to turn the Israeli embassy into the Palestinian embassy, and said that one of the goals of the Islamic Republic is total support for Palestine. And throughout the ages, with all of the ups and downs that Iran has had in its 43 years, it's never wavered in its support for Palestine. And actually, these same the representatives of these imperialist entities, they try to cause trouble inside the country so many times, because I said people do have economic issues, and they're trying to okay, so they're taking the food from you and sending it to Palestine and sending it to Lebanon, because they wanted to, of course, cause the schism. And we have seen the effects in Palestine. I mean, if we go back to the way the Israelis would bomb them in Gaza and the length of time, and each time we see it's getting less and less, that they are actually doing an all-out bombing campaign, although it's still brutal. But they're also getting hurt too, whereas before they were just inflicting pain. So now it's getting more and more balanced. And yes, they know that the resistance, the Hezbollah resistance, is right there on their border. They know that there's a solidarity, and they are scared. They are scared, and they have reason to be, because I can say, the people of the resistance, they've had enough. They are not going to tolerate this type of inequity, this type of injustice. These are not people that you can buy off and just say, okay, forget the Palestinians, forget this, forget that. No, we're all in it together. And yes, of course, they are afraid. They are afraid. And again, I guess they should be.
Beautifully said. And just wrapping up here, I know, we're short on time. And everything you've been saying is so powerful, and honestly, there's zero. It's almost frightening how much little balanced coverage there is of the situation. Like, it's 99% anti-Iran, 99% pro-imperialism, and even this conversation right now, you're not going to find it even among so many left progressive anti-imperialist circles. What I wanted to ask you is, moving forward. Well, first of all, you're in Iran right now, you're in Tehran. What is the feeling like right now in the city, in the country? What do you think is going to happen moving forward now with everything going on?
Well, I mean, as I said, it's not the first time that we've seen something like this. Tehran is very different from a lot of different cities, right? Because it's a capital, it's big, it's a lot of different people from all over the country here. A very vibrant city. We've seen, like I said yesterday, when the universities opened, I think we had more sit-ins here than other places. At the same time, I think what will come out of this, hopefully, are positive changes. Because, of course, there needs to be changes, there needs to be improvements, and hopefully strong solidarity. The problem is that, of course, in usually movements, it's the younger people who are on the streets. And our younger people, because of the economic situation, are the ones that are more concerned about their futures. They should be. Job opportunities. So hopefully, that this will push the government, although I have to say this particular government, since it's come in, it has really, really tried to improve the situation as opposed to the previous government. I can say that can make the situation a lot worse. But so I'm hoping that out of this, there can be improvement. There needs to be more dialogue between the generations, between the various perspectives, and I think that will come about too. But I do believe that the future Iran is bright. I really do, because I feel that the West, imperialist bloc in general, they have done everything they could to bring Iran to its knees, to destroy this revolution. I don't think they have anything else.
Yeah,
there's not. That's it. I mean, they have just done it all, and that's why this time around it's so intense and so coordinated. We look at the anti-Islamic Republic Iranian groups that can't stand each other, but have come together in solidarity to try to bring the Islamic Republic down. So they're really trying everything they have left, because I think they know that this is it.
Yeah,
you've sanctioned everything that Iran has.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And every day we're hearing, okay, new sanctions, new sanctions. Well, you know what? Iran still is thriving. I want to add this because one thing that I continually think about, because I'm American. I mean, I grew up in the States. I know how people live from paycheck to paycheck, right? And then so many times I put it in perspective, like, my God, like if this happened in the States, people would be starving to death, because all of a sudden, if you imagine that the value of your money drops 50% one day, 1 week, your buying power. Imagine what that would do to the average American household, not just American household, average households. Iranians are, I think that they have been through so much over the years or over the centuries that they are very creative. They know how to deal with hardships, and they thrive. I mean, this is not a country, you not walk around Tehran or other parts of Iran and feel like, oh my God, this devastating country. You're like, wow, this is a country that's on the move. I had guests this past summer from the States, and they were like, my God, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the young people are, come on, I just want people to understand what we're talking about. You're talking about normal lives. People just want to live normal lives. People are out and about, cafes, different things, whatever, living like everybody else. That's all they want, is just to live. And we have this pressure coming from the West of trying to distort reality, even in the minds of our own young people here. And that's, the social media, the power of social media.
Oh, man.
In all of these, the color revolutions is really something. It's really something, and how they do it. And what I tell young people in general, to educate themselves, to understand, with any movement, with any network, with whatever you're talking about, follow the money. Where does it go back to? Where is it rooted? And then you'll understand the goal.
Beautifully said. That's such a good point. And I'd love to have at some point in the future, a discussion with you about social media and mind control and psychology and the youth, because it's in the US in particular. I think one of the things that people in the US don't realize, it's not until you leave the US that you realize how brainwashed and commercialized we are and programmed. It's just ironic because people in the US will say, oh, Iran, they all have to wear hijabs and they're so brainwashed. And it's like, you all listen to the same commercial artists, you memorize all of their lyrics, you buy the same Coke and Pepsi products, you watch the same it's like mass mind control, and we don't even recognize that it's happening here. And it's just it's crazy.
Just 2 quick points on what you just said. Once I was in a documentary there, and I was talking to this homeless guy in the streets, and he was a veteran, and talking about his hardships and this and that or whatever. And then at the end, he says, "But thank God I'm American."
Oh my God!
Wow! You don't have a house, you don't have ample food to eat. You're sitting here in the cold, in the street, but thank God you're American. Well, that comes from that whole brainwashing process. And just one thing I want to say, when I was in the prison there, and it's very interesting because when you go into the public part of the facility where, all the prisoners sit together, the television is on constant, this trash and everything, it's just whatever. And I had a friend somewhere who was working in the prison. He was like a chaplain going to prison. He had gotten these individuals to the point that they were like, okay, we don't want the television on. And they requested from the warden, from prison officials, that we don't want the television on. And they're like, no, that television must be on.
Wow.
It should be on.
Whoa.
So that tells you a lot about what that television is doing to people in their minds.
No, most definitely. It's like mass mind control. It's social media. I call it anti-social media. And this is why Israel Tel Aviv is investing so much in the metaverse and all of these things, because this is all they have left. Like they're high level magicians who operate on a whole nother level. And Iran just has a more wholesome state of existence where people aren't completely consumed by some of the horrible values of the West. young people are learning 4 or 5 languages. They're studying medicine, and it's really inspiring. I hope, Marzieh, someday me and my wife Ophelia will go visit you in Tehran sometime.
That'd be great.
I'd love
That would be great. We'll have
to
do
see
it,
there.
girl.
Yeah, most definitely,
I'd
and
love to show you around the country.
thank you. No, most definitely. I really appreciate having you on, Marzieh. It's been really an honor. I've always looked up to your work, and I think you're somebody who I hope you continue doing what you do. And my solidarity with everybody in Iran. I know it's very tough right now, especially getting solidarity and support from people in the West because so many people are scared. But my support and solidarity.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And again, hopefully all real anti-imperialists will really come together and understand what's going on, not only in Iran, but in so many other countries too, and to themselves.
Thank you. And also my friend Erica, she said, this was incredible. So much respect for this woman. My viewers, listeners, I love your work. Is it okay if I share your Twitter handle with folks here just so that they can follow you? So everybody who's watching and listening, please follow Marzieh on Twitter. Twitter at Hashemi Marzieh. That's H A.
I'll send it to you if you don't have it.
Oh, perfect. All right, cool. Yeah, send it to me. I'll put it in the description as well. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch soon. I hope you are well. Take care. All right. Have a good day.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. That was the amazing Marzieh Hashemi, U.S. journalist living in Tehran. We just spoke to her. She gave us the rundown of what's actually going on. Hands off Iran and the sanctions. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. And I'm sorry for some of the technical issues. I was hitting her up. We were trying Skype, Google, everything. And the tech overlords are censoring. She was saying that a lot of Iranian internet sites are being blocked, and there's just so much suppression. So please follow her. Link is in the description for her Twitter account. She's just such an amazing journalist woman from Louisiana. She, as a Black woman in Iran, she says she feels more safe in Iran than in the U.S., and that's saying a lot. So it's really beautiful to hear that. And please share this. Share this with your liberal friends who are saying, "Oh, neither Washington nor Tehran, both sides are bad." Let's follow this random grassroots group collective. Some random feminist collective in Tehran, or with like blue hair and shaved heads, and it's like, it's just I'm so glad I was able to get that perspective, because this is something that you're never going to hear. There are so many women. I think Chris mentioned it in the chat earlier. Like, there's literally thousands of women who are marching in the streets and protesting in solidarity with the Islamic Revolution. And it's important, as Chris said, the latte left. So it's important. Share this, guys. Like, literally, I haven't seen anybody. There are very few channels out there who are defending Iran. We don't want war with Iran, because this is how it works. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, where in order for the U.S. imperialists to carry out war, to carry out regime change, first they need to set up a script. They need to set up a narrative. And they do this so that they get your consent, right? Because the devil, the great Satan, does not have any actual power. They have to get you to do it, right? Because the people have the power. So by brainwashing the people, by manipulating the people, by creating these spells of feminist uprising in Iran, using this color revolution style techniques, creating pity and sympathy where it shouldn't be. Obviously, we mourn the loss of any life, just like Marzieh was saying, but like, we have to really look at what actually happened. And there's a lot of things that don't really make sense, as mainstream media is saying. And just as Erica said, everybody's scared. Yeah, don't be scared. Like that. There's so many so-called leftists out there who are so scared of being associated with Iran because it's not trendy. And I always talk about this all the time with people. I'm speaking to you guys as like a comrade in the anti-imperialist movement. There are some movements that are trendier or easier to support than others. And I'm just being real. I'm not trying to be a dick. Hold on, let me turn off my alarm. I'm not trying to be a dick. it's just, that's a reality, right? I'm not even gonna like call out specific movements or groups, but there's some causes or movements that are easier or more trendy to support. It is not trendy to defend Iran. It is not trendy to defend the DPRK or Syria or Zimbabwe, and that's why, or Nicaragua, and that's why I actively speak out in solidarity with these nations, because even within the anti-imperialist left in the U.S., they don't get the love they deserve, even though Iran is helping Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua in many ways. They're trading with China and Russia. They're helping the poorest, arguably some of the most oppressed people in the world in Yemen, the Ansar Allah movement, resist Saudi occupation and bombing. Iran, whether you're Muslim or not, it doesn't matter, right? Iran is playing a progressive role in the anti-imperialist global community, and that's important to point out. So I'm just really glad that you guys were able to hear from Marzieh Hashemi, an amazing woman journalist. Again, the link to her Twitter is in the description. What I want to do, I just want to play a clip. This is some press coverage of what's been happening in Iran from Iranian media, just again, because you're not going to see this anywhere. You're not going to see this in mainstream media. So I want to share this perspective so that you guys can check it out.
Mahsa Amini, a name that has hit the headlines over the past days for her death in hospital after her detention by the Iranian police over her non-compliance with the Islamic dress code. While demonstrations have been held across the country demanding clarification regarding her death, there have been violent protests and riots, leading to clashes with police and acts of vandalism against public property.
It's not about hijab in Iran. What is important is Islam, that Western countries want to get our hijab, our Islam from us.
Those who are rioting are in fact mercenaries who are paid by Iran's enemies. I advise all my fellow Iranians to be wise and cautious and stay away from the seditions plotted by our enemies.
Iranian officials say the death of Mahsa Amini is being exploited by foreign-backed organized groups to instigate chaos and wreak havoc across the country. On Friday, upon returning from New York, Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi said people's demand will be definitely heard. However, he noted that jeopardizing public security will not be tolerated. 22-year-old Mahsa was an Iranian Kurd from the city of Saqqez in Kurdistan province. On September 13th, she was on a trip to Tehran with her family when she was arrested by police. CCTV footage released by police showed that she passed out at the police station. 3 days later, she died in hospital. While police have dismissed allegations that Mahsa was mistreated during detention, Iranian authorities have given assurance a thorough investigation into her death is underway. Now, many Iranians say they're all grieved for Mahsa's unfortunate death, yet they say the issue should not divide Iranians and harm national security.
The Western media outlets have chosen to incite violence inside Iran and, follow the framing of the U.S. government, which is, not in line with reality and is hypocritical in the sense that they talk about the human rights of the people in Iran, but they have for years trampled the human rights of the Iranian people by sanctioning Iran, by not allowing even medicine come to the country for people in need of that. So it is hypocritical of the U.S. government to talk about human rights, not only because it has a dark human rights of of its own inside the United States, but also because it has a dark human rights record of instigating violence around the world wherever there are independent countries involved.
Well, you can see women are a great part of these mass rallies that are currently underway across Iran in different cities following the Friday prayers. To discuss that further, we're joined by Sam Mahdi Torabi, director of the Risalat Strategic Studies Institute. Mr. Torabi, thank you very much for joining us. What do you make of the recent developments in Iran, the fact that the death of a young woman became a pretext for rioters to come out and commit the acts of aggression and vandalism that we've been witnessing over the past couple of days.
Good afternoon, Kisu. Well, there's a couple things that I think are important for us to understand. First of all, and this is something I mentioned, if you may recall, at the protest that happened after the price hikes for fuel a couple of years ago. One problem that we have in Iran is that because every incident that happens in Iran is abused and instrumentalized by America and its forces who are against Iran, we can't have a proper demonstration in Iran. We can't have a proper protest in Iran. There are things. Iran had a revolution. It was a popular revolution. It's changed a monarchy to a republic. It is enshrined in the constitution that demonstrations are allowed. Of course, they have to be peaceful, like any other country. And the problem is that when things happen, people have a right to demonstrate about things that they might disagree with, whether it was fuel hikes, whether it was the death of this young lady while she was with the police. So these are natural things that happen in every country, and in every other country, people can go out and demonstrate, and they can, say their grievances in a public manner. But the problem in Iran is that it is always abused and instrumentalized by the Americans and those forces who are against the Islamic Republic. So we always end up with rioting, and these issues never get resolved.
So amazing, important coverage from Press TV. You can check out Press TV on YouTube, VOV News. They had to rebrand because fucking Israel and US media was suppressing them. So they had to change the name a little bit on YouTube. So go check them out. Yeah, guys, it's shout out to Erica, by the way. She said, Ramiro, this channel is such an important intervention to the Latte Left news. Thank you so much, Karmat Erica. Yeah, it's I can't tell you how infuriating it is to have to go over this over and over. Like, people just keep falling for these spells, with Ukraine, now with Iran. And this is why it's important to always ground ourselves in materialist, scientific, socialist analysis. This is the danger of postmodernism. This is the danger of liberal politics. And I saw this even a few years ago when people started using words like economic reductionist, right? Or whenever you point out imperialism and economics, they say, oh, you don't care about this or that. Obviously, like, we support women's rights, we support LGBTQ rights, we support indigenous rights, environmental rights, but we have to understand the world through the lens of imperialism. Imperialism is a primary contradiction. And whether you're Muslim or not, okay, like, that doesn't matter. Like, Iran, the people of Iran have decided to have a Muslim revolution, Islamic revolution. Let them do that. They have a different way of living. But just some of these liberal cosmopolitan academics in the West, these leftists, they just don't understand that. They want everybody to be just like them, and their definition of freedom and liberty is just so decadent and westernized and bourgeois, and they're so detached from what it means, what proletarian feminism means in different places. And if I think of it like this, right? Let's see, Chris said Ramiro would be called an extractivist at NYU. Dude, that's fucking hilarious. No, most definitely that they would be like, he's a Putin's apologist, an extractivist. I remember when I actually went to NYU, when I was there, I was going to the protests in solidarity with the Syrian government against the Wahhabi reactionaries, and people would say, oh, you're an Assad apologist and all this nonsense. And when I was defending Gaddafi as well. So it's crazy. My message to you guys, especially those of you on the left, those of you who are anti-imperialist, who are having conversations with people, is don't be scared. Don't be coward. Don't be a coward. Stand up for what's right. In your gut that this is a color revolution. You know in your gut that if CNN, MSNBC, Fox, New York Times is writing positively about all of this, that something is up, you know it. So don't try to play this game of like, oh, both sides are bad, nuance. The Western government is taking advantage of legitimate grievance. No, like, right, there's a clear division, and playing this whole nuance game is freaking cowardly. Like, I stand with Iran. I don't give a fuck what people say about me. I stand with Iran. I stand with the Islamic Revolution. I stand with the peoples of the world resisting empire, resisting the Soros postmodern liberal color revolution nonsense. And I think there are many others who do as well. And I just hope you speak out. I hope you take the principled position, because we don't want to see the Iranian government toppled. You guys remember what happened in Libya, right? With Gaddafi? Like, we don't want that again to happen with Iran. So, we want peace and stability. We don't want chaos and color revolutions in Iran. So I gotta head out, guys. I gotta go pick up Ophelia. She's coming out of work right now. I'm exhausted. It's like super late. And shout out to you guys on the East Coast, by the way. It's like almost 11 o'clock here in Cali, but in the East Coast, it's Krista, I get brunch with Assad. Yeah, me too. I would love to get brunch. I would get brunch with like Putin, Assad, Maduro. That'd be pretty cool. Get some mimosas. Nah, I don't even drink. But yeah, so shout out to you guys on the East Coast for tuning in and watching and supporting. And again, don't be peer pressured into supporting imperialist talking points about Iran. Solidarity with the Islamic Revolution. Down with the United Snakes, the great Satan of quote unquote America. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Peace out. You guys have a great week, and take care.
آی منم که با ترور همیشه دشمنم آی منم طرفدار صلح و عشق و سازش آره من اگرچه گاهیم تو دل داعش خون مردم رو تو شیشه میکنم تو یمن شام و غزه و عراق هم مهم نیست اصلا گوش میکروفون لنز دوربینا سمت من همیشه تو تموم ماجرا جای این رکوردای خونی توی گینسه تو جنایت تا کسی به گردم نمیرسه کار من قمار رو جون آدماست اسمم آمریکاست دستکشام مخملی رو سرم کلاه خود حقه های منو میبینی تو هالیوود من کنار مردمم تموم لحظه ها حتی تو تحریم دارو و دوا پشت میز مذاکره خیلی جنتلمنم گرگو میبینی اگه نقابو بکنم وقتشه که هم صدا بشن تموم آدما تا که بشکنه یکی یکی این حصارها فرصت رها